Hello YouTube, Tim here, and today I wanted to talk to you about bow breakage, at least as it regards PVC bows. I've had maybe 8 bows break, at least that I've been told about and that I know of. And that's over 3 years, so it's not a common thing. The first bow that I had that broke was really, really weird. It was a Schedule 80 bow. I changed perspective slightly. It was a Schedule 80 bow. It was 3/4 inch pipe, 48 inches long, standard youth recurve, or rather adult recurve, and I was flexing it over my knee. What happened was it just shattered right above the handle. No apparent reason that I could see whatsoever. Was it overheated? Well, it certainly wasn't burnt. It didn't look bad in any way. Just who knows? Could have been a micro crack or a fissure, or some of these things are just inexplicable. Other bows, most of the bows that I've had that have broken have been Turkish style bows where I've shaped the siyas, the end of the siyas. Now, I've talked about that, where the siyas are inserted into the actual body of the pipe. And something that you can do is create a sharp edge in the end of the pipe. When the siya flexes against the pipe that you insert it into, that can crack and the whole limb can go. I've had that happen 2 or 3 times. Since then, I've been either leaving the inner pipe intact, or I've been very careful to round the edge, make it nice and rounded rather than creating a sharp edge that creates a weak spot. We talked about angles and how that can create a weak spot with knocks. In the exact same way, you can create a weak spot with your the ends of the bows. You just don't want to do that. So that's something that I've had happen to me. One other Turkish bow happened on camera. It was, I think it did anyway. I was flexing it for a guy who wanted it shaped as much like a U-shaped bow as possible. So I left it more or less with no deflex, and it pulled to about 25 inches, and pow! It just exploded because the grain of the siya ran out. When that failed, it took the limb with it. So it was just a cascading failure. Unfortunately, that was, again, something after which I started using overbuilt birch plywood siyas, and in the Turkish bows that works great. The next bow that I had fail was also using the birch plywood siyas. It was the original adult recurve, what I cut the ends off of and inserted them into. They were just too thin. So unfortunately, they cracked near the base where they were under the most stress. I was able to pop them out and replace them. Just one of those things. So now I know build the plywood siyas a little bit more because they're just not as stiff as normal wood. Other bows. I'm trying to think of any other bows that I've had go, and that's really pretty much it until yesterday. I got a message from a customer whose bow broke about 2/3 of the way up the limb, they said, which is a weird spot. And it was at about, or I think that's what it was. I'll look into it more. But it was at less than full draw. The bow's draw weight was 15 pounds, 20 pounds. And we're talking about a bow that was 52, 54 inches long, not heavily reflexed, just a very basic bow. Again, I didn't, as far as I could tell, I didn't burn the bow. I didn't overheat the bow. I'm really curious what on earth could have happened. In this case, I just don't know. It could have been because a lot of the time you get pipe that's just not very fresh. Maybe it had been sitting out longer than I would have liked. It's hard to tell when you're in the hardware store. For a tip, this is a pretty good one. I found that if you're willing to pay a little bit more for your pipe, if you get the pre-cut 4-foot sections or 5 or 6 foot sections, a lot of the time those are brand spanking new, and you go through those a lot faster. They have better turnover. What I found is that the 10-foot sections can sometimes be over a year old, and that's borderline. You don't know how long it's been sitting outside. Some of them I know how long they've been sitting in the store, and I don't know if the ultraviolet light from the store beating down on it for a long, long time is anywhere near as destructive as the ultraviolet light from the sun, which, as we know, can damage the PVC itself. It starts to dechlorinate the PVC. The ultraviolet light's energetic enough to break some of the molecular bonds, and eventually the pipe will break, or at least it weakens to the point where it will under stress. Beyond that, I really don't know. So I'm going to make another bow for them, of course, and I really wish I better understood what happened. If I can, maybe I'd just like to see some photographs. It's a very unusual mode of failure. For the most part, PVC bows that I've had just collapse. But then again, odd things happen. I had other bows that, one bow I didn't make, first time I folded it when I drew it a little too far. This was at like a 32-inch draw from a very short bow, so it was impressive. It folded. I reheated it to get the limb set up. I didn't touch it then for months and months and months and months. I went back to it and I strung it up and started to draw, and poof, it blew. Was it because of the reheating? Probably, but I don't know. Usually PVC is a little more resilient than that. I've had another bow, a 1-inch pipe bow, that I've reheated multiple times and it just keeps on folding. So it's probably a function of the pipe thickness. 1-inch pipe is thicker, thus should be a little bit more resilient to stuff like that. It also sucks up heat better. It'll distribute it more because of more mass. Oh, mystery upon mysteries, right? Well, if you'd like, I'd very much like to hear it here and on the forum, the crafting community, wherever you'd like. Tell me about your failures and stories and breakages and flops and all those things. I'd like to not only commiserate, but learn from you guys, and maybe we can share and learn from each other to help this sort of thing happen less and less until maybe it doesn't happen at all. Thanks for watching, YouTube.